And your latest book, if you can just fill us in on this, on the JFK assassination and how you got started with all this, how you got interested, and
Okay. Well, the book is called Killing Kennedy, Exposing the Plot, the Cover-Up, and the Consequences. And it just came out November 15th. And basically, it was a 3-year journey for me. I'd always been interested in the Kennedy assassination, and I wanted to contribute in some way, and I wasn't sure how to do that. But after talking to some friends of mine, and they, asking them, well, what would be relevant today? What would be something that is different? All right, a book that would be different than the thousands that are out there. And I pretty much decided to do what I call a people's history, from the standpoint of I wanted to interview as many people as I could and ask them questions based on the theme of the book, which was why it still matters. What are the exact ripple effects? What have the ripple effects been? What do young people need to understand about it, and why is it important that they know and they care about it? And also try to get information based on different disciplines, whether it's philosophy or psychiatry. I wanted to look at examine the assassination from all different angles. And what it turned out to be was an emotional journey, because I started to interview, I was lucky and fortunate that I was able to interview amazing people for the book. Researchers, JFK researchers, people whose fathers were in the CIA during that time period. And we're talking about heavy hitters. And so through those interviews, I was really able to gain a much clearer understanding, not only of the assassination and the nuances of it, but of the people. The fact that everyone in the book, there's 24 people in the book, and they all were very emotional. They were emotional interviews. They were human interviews. They were, yes, it was about the facts and the evidence and things like that, especially with the researchers. But for a lot of it was just talking about what it meant to them to do what they did, the struggles that they've encountered, the ripple effects it's had in their lives, and depending on who I talked to, that was different, depending on who they were and what their connection to the assassination was. So the finished product is something that I think that people will enjoy, because it does take them on an emotional journey, and it reminds people that the ripple effects of the assassination were not just political, and they weren't just physical, but they were emotional. It's from an individual standpoint emotional, and from a national, as a country, emotional. And these are scars that we still haven't recovered from. And when you start putting all the pieces together, there's this incredible big picture story that comes out of it. And it's sad, and it's infuriating, but we have to document it, because younger generations need to understand how important it is that it still matters.
why do you think it's still relevant? I know it is, but in your all,
It,
you've
it
been you talked to a lot of people, and you've been
yeah,
investigating this.
it's still relevant because everything changed that day. From that day forward till today, American exceptionalism, that idea of American exceptionalism, has eroded. And it started with that day, November 22nd, 1963, when Kennedy was killed. There was the erosion of American exceptionalism.
And who were some of the major players that you, if you don't mind,
Yeah, sure.
you know,
Involved or whatever.
that you
Yeah.
spoke to, and how difficult was it? It must have been really difficult to track down some of these people after all these years.
Yeah, it was, and I had help. I had help from the JFK community. Lorian Fenton helped me a great deal. People that knew a lot of people. Certainly, it really started with the researchers, and then I asked everyone I interviewed, who else should I talk to? Who would be really cool to talk to? And I didn't. I wanted to. It's a little bit outside the box, because I really wanted to get people. I wanted to make it a broad book of people from different, for whatever reason, for much different reasons that they were in the book, but it all had to do with the Kennedy assassination. And what I learned, and I tell people this, listen, I was not there, so I don't know who did it. I wasn't on the sixth book. That's a thing that's really important to say that, because I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly what happened. I'll never know. If I was witness and I saw something, then I would know, but I wasn't. And so, but what you can, by using critical thinking skills, right, and objective thinking and being open-minded, it becomes very clear that it was a conspiracy, and it becomes very clear, which is very interesting to me, that really Oswald most likely didn't fire a gun that day. Again, I wasn't there. I wasn't on the sixth floor, so I didn't see who was up there. But there seems to be no question about the fact that it was a conspiracy, it was a cover-up, and that
at the highest level.
At the highest levels, Alan Dulles of the CIA, James Angleton of the CIA, perhaps the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I think that it's safe to say the mob was involved, and I think the way the mob was involved is the CIA worked with the mob. In those days, they did a lot together.
That was been established.
Right, and the CIA would use the mob for their hits. Like they would say, okay, because they had assassins.
So they turned it over.
And they said, okay, and the mob hated the Kennedys. So, it was, when people think, well, was the mob involved? The mob was very much involved in the planning of it. Cuban exiles, right? Because they were upset about the Bay of Pigs. So they hated Kennedy. Kennedy had a lot of enemies between him and Robert. Absolutely. They made a ton of enemies. The big oil people, the Clinton Murchisons and then H.L. Hunt in Texas, they wanted him gone. He became a national threat because he wanted peace. Kennedy wanted to work towards the Cuban Missile Crisis, scared the heck out of him. And he realized that millions of people could have died in a matter of seconds. And he worked with Khrushchev. He was working behind the scenes. They had the missile treaty, and then they were working on other things. Well, the Cold Warriors,
they didn't like
the
that.
Hawks from World War II, the OSS that turned into the CIA and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they wanted nuclear. I mean, they were like, we'll win a nuclear war. So we're first strike, we can do it. And Kennedy's like, are you kidding? He couldn't believe the viper's nest that he walked into when he became president. But there was a lot of courage on his part, because I feel like he had to have known that they wanted him gone. Like he was playing with fire. He had to have known he was pushing for the betterment of not only the United States but the entire world.
And he didn't back down.
He didn't back down, and he was doing things in Indonesia, not just Vietnam. He didn't want to go to Vietnam, Indonesia, Congo, all of South America. It created that group that was like he wanted all those countries to be sovereign and not subject to colonialism like it had been leading up to that. But the people in the CIA and the powers that be in the United States, they depended on that. They made millions and billions of dollars on that kind of business.
It's all about the money.
It's all about the money. It's all about the power.
Vietnam.
All of it. Again, Bell Helicopter, General Dynamics. All these companies, United Fruit Company, that whole story with the United Fruit Company.
Really?
Alan Dulles and John Foster Dulles were major stockholders in the United Fruit Company. So
how was that tie in?
When we had the coup in Guatemala in 1959, I believe, I might be wrong off a year or two, we took out the coup, the CIA-led coup. We took out a democratically elected leader in Guatemala, so we can put our own guy in, because the democratic elected leader did not want to. United Fruit Company would have lost millions and millions of dollars.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay.
What happened?
Battery.
Done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And we're good. We're still going. Okay. So the United Fruit Company was a big deal. I mean, and it was also a CIA. It was compromised by the CIA. It was a CIA front company, just like General Dynamics was and IBM was, and they were infiltrated a lot of big companies. And there's, it's like Ed Thatcher said, it goes on, the links go on and on and on.
All interconnected.
All interconnected. And Kennedy was the guy that had to go in order for those
he was
people
standing in the way.
those people to maintain their power. And it comes down to an elitism. There's always been an elite group of people in this that have ruled this country, that have governed this country, and it goes back to Yale and Harvard, and the CIA recruited almost exclusively from Ivy League schools. These were blue bloods. These were people who were raised to believe that they were elite, that they were special, that they were born to rule, that it was better off for everyone if they ruled, and that the masses needed them to rule. So they had this incredibly elitist, arrogant attitude, and a lot of them were, and then you add in the narcissism, you add in a little bit of sociopathy, and you have the recipes for some really nasty people in power, and that includes people like Lyndon Johnson. I say Alan Dulles, and the like.
That's another story.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. And
Yes.
and I don't listen. I think Johnson was the perfect guy to have there after. So I think he was in perfect
Do you
position.
think he was involved? Do you think he was?
I think
I've asked that so
I
many
think
people.
he had so many Texas connections. He had to know about it, but he wasn't
Thanks.
Directly involved?
Yeah, directly involved. And I think but he played along, and he was glad Kennedy was gone.
Part of the cover-up.
Part of the cover-up, and he was the perfect person to lead that cover-up. Hence the Warren Commission.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, very good. Just one more question. I know your research led you to delve into Lee Harvey Oswald. That was not exactly the person that has been presented and portrayed
No, not
of
at
the
all.
lone nut, crazy communist.
Right. I think
You
that
found something different.
I found something different, and that was the most revealing part for me. And I think that was the most. It was a special. The whole journey was amazing, but what I learned about that man changed me. It changed my whole understanding of everything that regarding the Kennedy assassination. I always thought he was a patsy, but
Oh, yeah.
no one knows Oswald. They know Oswald is one of two things: lone nut assassin or patsy. But they don't know him as a person, as a human being, as a man. And I was able to interview 2, 3, 4 people in the book who knew him in some capacity, and getting that insight from them, and the different insights from them, made me realize that Oswald was incredibly intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
He was most definitely a U.S. intelligence asset. How deep, I don't know for sure, but he was pretty deep. He was part of the false defector program. He was an intelligence agent, and they lower level, so they were able to use him, sheep dip him. There were several people like that that could have wound up being the patsy. It just happened in Dallas. Oswald was there. He was the one. But Oswald was a caring guy. He was a sensitive guy. He loved children. I had stories in it about.
You had some examples.
Yeah, it was amazing stuff, and I wanted to read those because I wanted people to understand. Yes, we talk about the facts, and we talk about the bullets, and we talk about the trajectories, and we talk about Mexico City, and we talk about all this. We need to talk about these people as people too, and we need to understand that we're all human beings and we have human interaction. And there was plenty of human interaction that was going on in the summer of New Orleans in 1963, and with all these people, with Judith Mary Baker and the love story of her and Lee Harvey Oswald. That's incredible, and no one's more sincere than Judith. I mean, it's incredible, and she's been through a hell of a lot because of that. But she's still
took a lot of criticism.
It's a lot of criticism, but she has a ton of courage. So yeah, I learned a lot about Lee Harvey Oswald, the man, and quite frankly, I think it was someone I would have loved to have known. I think I would have liked the guy. And I know that's a lot to say, but I really think it was someone I would have enjoyed their company. He was he kept quiet. Part of it was because of the spycraft. He couldn't get too close to many people. But once you got him talking, apparently, he would just talk and talk.
How did you find this out?
I found out through Judith, Victoria Sulzer, who knew him in junior high school, and then met him again in New Orleans the summer of '63. Pat Hall, who her grandmother owned the boarding house in New Orleans in the fall. In Dallas, where he was when the assassination occurred, and would tell me different stories about. Well, I was, my brothers used to you know, she had two brothers, younger brothers, and the brothers adored Mr. Lee because he was the only one who would spend time with them and play with them. And he loved kids, and he treated them as human beings. You know, a lot of adults back then, you know, you're seen and not heard. It was that kind of old school mentality.
Yeah,
with
mentality,
kids.
right.
Lee wasn't like that. So you had a person who was, I honestly think, one of the better people involved in all the people involved in this. He was probably one of the better
True
people.
patriot.
It's definitely a true patriot, but I mean, even I just think from a human being standpoint, he was a decent person, and a lot better than most of these other guys that we talk about when we talk about the Kennedys.
Right. Well, Jack, it's been a pleasure. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
thank you. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Thanks for
I always
talking.
love talking about it.
Oh,
So.
did a great job.